I paint the air that surrounds my subjects, and it reveals a deeper understanding of the moment and the emotions time-stamped in each and every one of my paintings. My parents moved to Farmington, New Mexico in 1956, where my dad relocated his dental practice. In 1958, my parents purchased a farm at La Plata, New Mexico. School was very difficult for me. Dyslexic children in those days were referred to as stupid, and my parents thought the small school would help my lessons.
I just knew that I had to help him, and so I did it. I didn't know anything about that dyslexia at the time.
I really believe that my father was embarrassed by his very effeminate son, the other reason they moved to the farm. My father felt that moving to the farm would make a man of me, and those very important farm lessons have stayed with me all of my life. I had been begging my parents for our supplies for a very long time. I did not know that the teachers at school had told my parents that art was distracting me. And when my father got my sister a paint set, I was very angry with him.
And he stood, he watched me for a long time, and then he said, "You're doing that wrong. Here, let me show you." And he started doing actual painting things with it.
Oh, yeah. He was looking at the clouds. But he does that quite often already. And he drove that Ford tractor. It landed square dab in that ditch, and we had to pull it out. He never did take to all this farming.
I'd watch him paint. And he just kept painting and painting and painting, and he just kept mastering it.
Shortly after high school graduation, with only $10 in quarters, I found my way for the first time to Grand Canyon. My first attempt at painting the vastness was humiliating. It soon found its way in flight over the edge. In that moment, I had an epiphany. I wanted to paint Grand Canyon. I always felt forced to hide my natural instincts growing up in a conservative Mormon community. During college, I was trying to play by the rules that I felt society demanded of me. Shortly after the birth of my daughter Miranda in 1975, I moved my young family to Taos, certainly one of my better decisions. In Taos, I discovered men and artists just like myself. I discovered that I was not broken and I was not stupid. I was very fortunate to be close to so many great artists that lived there at the time. One of the artists that I made friends with was the great Rudd Goebel. He would allow me to go painting with him. I learned to paint from life. I learned to paint the seasons. I learned to paint the subject and the mood of the day. He was the most intuitive painter that I've ever known. I had a need to explore the academic side of painting, and I wrote the greatest living landscape painter of the day, Wilson Hurley. The first time I visited his studio, he looked at my painting and waved his hand in front of the cliffside and said, "Damn it, Curt, this hillside is round." Instantly, I got it. I understood form. This was the greatest gift of knowledge ever given to me, which I used to win the Stacy Scholarship. My youngest daughter, Veronica, was born in 1978. I very much enjoyed being a father to my little girls. I was growing very unhappy, and I needed to be close to the Grand Canyon, and I wanted to be close to the galleries in Scottsdale and Sedona. Mistakenly, I believed that if I moved to Sedona, I could save a failing relationship.
Before girl died, Curt had sold one for $12,000. We were just so happy.
The death of my father in 1980 set off a range of emotions in me that I truly did not understand. In 1983, I found myself very, very unhappy and started to drink way too much. In my art, I was exploring a very controlled and pointillist technique. These paintings were solid compositions, but they certainly reflected the uptight emotions I was feeling at the time. I faced the most difficult and sad decision of my life. The time had come.
Once I understood the reason why the divorce happened, I wasn't angry at you for leaving us there, because there's a giant difference between choosing to leave us there and having to leave us there.
I was very fortunate to have met Tom Daly at that time. He is a businessman with a great sense of humor, all wrapped in Southern charm. He was my hero then and continues to be my hero now.
If it had to be, I'm glad it was Tom. He hurt being happy, and the fact that Tom is willing to give up a lot for Curt to be Curt.
My art and my life were taking me on roads that I did not yet understand. Tom encouraged me to follow my instincts in my art, and painting outdoors was where I wanted to go. In 1984, Wilson Hurley told me that I would never be allowed at the Pretty West Show, the National Cowboy Museum, because of my lifestyle. Although I was hurt, I realized that I had spent 33 years trying to paint by their rules. I was free now to paint the world the way that I feel it. In 1986 and 1987, my art took on a very soft and gray quality. I think I was hiding in the paint. I have been blessed with very good health all of my life, but I think these paintings were reflecting a national demonization and the fear of people like myself. You could only see the soul in these paintings if you stood in front of them long enough. I was very aware that alcohol was interfering with my art, and I made a very conscious decision to stop drinking. With a clear head, I dedicated myself to nothing but plein air painting. After 2 back-to-back one-man shows in 1988 and 89, I had earned a trip to Paris. And it was awesome. I went there to study the Impressionists. As I stood in front of the Monet paintings, I began to cry. Those paintings taught me to see so much more than just the buildings, the people, or the flowers. They taught me to see the air that surrounds those subjects. I took that newfound knowledge home to paint the Grand Canyon. Plein air painting was now a very different experience for me than all the years before. With self-confidence and a healthy body, I began to drag large canvases to the canyon's edge. As I completed my large canvases outdoors, I felt a great sense of accomplishment and joy. My paintings were taking on the feeling of Impressionism for sure, and frequently the paint would find its way to Expressionism. While working on a show for Trailside, I began journaling my feelings about my paintings as I completed them. I submitted my writings to American Artists magazine, hoping they would assign a writer for an article. I was so pleased when the editor, Stephen Doherty, published my penned article in December 1991. I have always been intimidated when it comes to verbal communication, and this article was no exception. I was hesitant to even submit my words to Stephen because of my dyslexia and the emotional baggage from my childhood. I have few fond memories growing up in Farmington. I was belittled and punished for not having a brain like everyone else, and I never understood what I did to be humiliated and bullied by my classmates. My form of dyslexia also affected my coordination, and I had no athletic abilities. In the Farmington, New Mexico school system of the 1950s and 60s, only the beautiful, academic, or athletically gifted children had any value. All the unkind remarks and nasty attitudes caused me to develop feelings of self-loathing. I always felt unwanted, fat, and unattractive. But something remarkable happened. I experienced a paradigm shift when I saw my words published in American Artist magazine. On those pages were my paintings, my techniques, and my emotions, published by the premier international art magazine of its day. I was the author of this article. Not bad for the stupid gay kid from Farmington. I still cannot throw a baseball, but I really don't care anymore. It only took 40 years to realize my value and my gift is my art. Another trip that highly affected the way that I paint and see the Grand Canyon was a trip to Bali in 1994. The people were sweet and spiritual. The colors of that culture inspired me to come home and paint in primaries. I think it is the job of the artist to explore all kinds of subjects. A good artist can paint anything well.
I have to say, I don't think there's any question that paintings of the Grand Canyon, and Curt's in particular, make you look at it differently.
On behalf of the members and the board and the staff of the Grand Canyon Trust, my friend Curt Walters, a painting by Curt that's being donated to the park, a national treasure to another national treasure.
20 years after my first submission, Pretty West invited me to join the show. Tom chose not to go with me to this very important art show in fear that it would hurt my career. So I invited my friend, Lee Hubbard. Immediately following the sale, we were all ushered to the basement because of a tornado warning. After our scare, it was then that they announced that I had won the Buyer's Choice Award. That award changed my life, and no one heard my acceptance speech. Over the years, I had done several paintings from Yaqui Point. When I put the paintings together, I discovered that I had told the story of the air quality of Grand Canyon. I felt a call to action, and Grand Canyon Trust gave me a voice.
And what really struck me about you, Curt, was not that you were a good artist. I began to realize how much you thought about the quality of the air, how much you thought about the spirit of the place in the painting. And I was so struck by that, I thought we have to figure out something to connect the passion and the talent to the place. And you said, well, what if we went on a landscaping artist trip? Okay, I mean, you could take a couple people out there on the rim and paint. And you said, no, what if we went down the river?
We had 14 of us.
You were able not only to, by your own example, donate some of your work to the trust so we could sell it and raise money, but you persuaded those artists that that was going to be part of the deal. And then Kip Forbes, I love painting. He then sponsored the art exhibit in New York City. That was quite lovely. And they curated that show beautifully. It was a beautiful show.
It was really beautiful.
In the public's mind, it forever put your name and the Grand Canyon together.
Periodically, major national parks, they put together a management plan. But the changes that were being called for with this master plan would have meant more than $200 million needed to be raised. Anybody who knows anything about fundraising, you know that you have to have people with connections. So I wanted there to be at least one scientist on the board and at least one prominent artist. Because in my experience, that changes the debate and it secures the dream. And securing the dream was why I came to you.
As a board member of the Grand Canyon Foundation, I had the opportunity to go on many speaking tours and adventures. Tom and I had the adventure of rafting the lower half of the Grand Canyon in 2003 with the National Park Service. That trip inspired Apache Walls, winning me the Frederick Remington Painting Award at Pretty West.
As an artist and as a curator, I appreciate the fact that you do other subjects. I think it reflects a certain amount, actually a pretty good degree of self-confidence to not feel like you have to be constrained as a Grand Canyon painter.
My father actually emphasized seeing the beauty of the Southwest. He would say, "Curt, you're more than just a tourist. You're not visiting, you're learning. Don't just look at it, see it." My eyes have been opened ever since. I take advantage of every opportunity to visit our great Northwest. It's always a temptation to paint a working harbor. One of the greatest adventures I ever had was visiting the great ruins of Petra in Jordan. As a child, I never dreamed I would have the opportunity to visit the Forbes Chateau in Normandy, France. Chateau de Bellewaerde is one of the most beautiful historic monuments of the region, and I have painted there 4 times. I love English art, and I love painting in England. All my art heroes have painted in Venice. I have returned many times to try my hand at this subject. The first time I went to Canada, I had 2-month-old baby Miranda in tow. The last few trips have been much easier. Every great American landscape painter has tried their hand at Niagara Falls. I too felt the need to try this subject. They would not let me paint in the gardens at Bouchard, but I felt very redeemed when I found a beautiful rose garden at the Empress Hotel. I was inspired to paint that beautiful garden. In 1997, I fulfilled a lifelong dream to paint in Switzerland. The following year, I received Buyer's Choice Award at the Artists of America show for my painting Ethereal Magic of La Bruton.
One of the things I love about the canyon and the Colorado Plateau as a subject is that the sky is an important part of that. I love the atmosphere, I love weather, I love atmospheric and weather effects. I mean, I can look in yours and tell exactly what's going on.
In 2002, after winning the Buyer's Choice Award for my painting Winter Grandeur Besieged, Wilson warned me that I would never win the Pretty West Purchase Award. There was a very sweet irony that Wilson was there to watch me claim that very prize for my painting Spring's Caprice in 2007. That evening was extra special because I also won the Buyer's Choice Award for Ra's Domain. Following the show, Wilson came up to me and hugged me, something way out of his comfort zone. My mentor, my competitor, my antagonist, my friend, passed away the following spring.
Do you remember seeing it?
Oh, you can't. You can't describe it. It is so wonderful.
To my great surprise, Tom Tierney and Alan Durer of Art of the West magazine named me one of the 8 true masters of the American West in 2007. It was a truly great honor.
And I was able to announce from the podium that Curt was going to receive this honor and honor us by working with us to produce the show.
Everyone came that had a painting in the retrospective show.
I have now done 3 retrospectives, and with time and distance, I see these paintings in a whole new light. Following my retrospective at the Gilchrist Museum in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I was thrilled that Southwest Art named me one of the 40 most prominent people in the Western art world. I admitted for the first time in public that I am dyslexic.
I think that one of the things I really admire and enjoy about your work is the connection that I see back with Thomas Moran. I love Thomas Moran, and I don't know how this would ever be interpreted, but I enjoy your work much more.
He does want to do a painting of the conquistadors, and he wants to get it right. You know, as a curator, if you don't do it right and you've got something wrong, then you didn't do your homework.
That's right.
A trip to Toledo, Spain awakened a desire in me to do a painting of the Spanish conquistadors discovering Grand Canyon in 1540. My search for armor, artifacts, and the history of that event soon took me on a number of interesting painting trips. I spent hours sketching the armor in museums in Vienna and in London. My study of the Coronado expedition into the Southwest has led me to Mexico, where I have painted in Cruz de Guanajuato, Compostela, and the incredible Mexico City. The architecture of the historic part of Mexico was actually built by the conquistadors themselves. I'm so excited. My studio now looks like a medieval armory.
Won't it be fun when we can stand in front of a great painting of the Conquistador by Curt Walters?
Right.
I think it'll be worth the wait.
People are so quick to compare paintings to photographs. It's very frustrating. And it's an understandable conundrum. I think that one of the things that I really love most about your work, you're not painting individual those little feathery frond things, you know. When you get up close, I just love the texture. What's great about them is you can appreciate the distant view. You can appreciate the middle distant view. And then you get up close and there's all this cool stuff going on.
Well, it's been interesting to me to see firsthand the breadth of Curt's work. The area where he grew up as a child, parts of New Mexico that he's painted. There are vast areas of the world where he's painted. I would hope and think that through museum collections, private collections, and publications, that all of those things need to recognize the breadth of his work.